First of all, I want to thank Saimaiyu, who's here from Dorset. You may have noticed her works while you joined us at walking in. They're street side, right on Queen Street. They're just a few doors east of here. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Dr. Nancy Campbell, who's joining us, parachuting in. So thank you. It's incredibly gracious of you to join us and take part in this conversation. And I know you're working on some amazing exhibitions for this year, and I look forward to hearing about them. And then, of course, Gaëtane Verna, who's director of the power plant. Okay, so by way of an introduction, can you give us a bit of an overview of your interest in Inuit art? So what I'd like to do is start with Nancy, move on to Gaëtane, and then Saimaiyu, I have a question for you specifically that we'll get to. So please take it away.
I came to Inuit art as a contemporary art curator. I grew up in Winnipeg, which I think is important to mention because Winnipeg has a fantastic collection and history of Inuit art, and growing up as a Winnipegger, I think you have the pleasure and the privilege of seeing a lot of things, even if you don't know you're interested in it yet. I started as a curator in contemporary art galleries and always had an interest in Inuit art, but it wasn't my area of study or specialization as an undergraduate or graduate student. And I think a pivotal change. I started at the University of Guelph working, and the University of Guelph has, or the Macdonald Stewart Art Centre, which is now renamed Guelph Museum, I think, but Guelph Art Gallery of Guelph. Art Gallery of Guelph, very good. Have an amazing collection of contemporary drawings from Baker Lake, and I had the fortune of going as a junior curator about 20 years ago to Baker Lake and was blown away by what I saw at that time. Subsequently, as a contemporary art curator, I started looking at living artists in the north, and did an exhibition of Annie Poudagou in 2006, and it became certainly a passion and love and an interest, and I continue to work in that vein as a contemporary curator. And
you just received your doctorate, did you not?
I did.
Congratulations.
I just did, and my dissertation was on contemporary Inuit drawing, focusing on Annie Poudagou and Shubhanaya Shuna. So I know a lot about a very small amount of things. So I'm delighted to be here with Saimaiyu, who I've also worked with. And I love drawing, and I love Inuit drawing particularly.
Gaëtane, please.
Yes. So before I started working at the power plant, I used to run the Musée d'Art de Joliette, and as we were doing work on the collection and mining this collection to know what we had in 8,000 works, it dawned onto us that the only First Nation art that we had in this collection were actually prints, Inuit prints. And then I moved to the power plant 5 years ago, and was fortunate to meet I shouldn't say Toronto because they're in Burlington, two Burlington passionate collectors who just kept showing me their collection and speaking to me about Inuit practice. I knew of Annie Poudagou's work, but nothing in depth besides what how she had won the Sobey Arts Prize. And so from then on, it's just a curiosity of wanting to go on the land and actually go to Cape Dorset and to get a better understanding of the context in which the work are produced. And that's it.
Awesome, thank you. And Saimaiyu, we'd like to know how you became interested in making art to begin.
I was in Nunavut teacher education program, I personally hated art all my life. I failed art in one of my art classes when I was in the program. And but there were times when I had to keep myself awake during our instructional time, like when our instructor taught us, like I had to keep myself up and I started doodling and coloring and using different colors. And that's when Lingyukolo Davy told me to go to the litho shop and get paper and try and become an artist, but I hesitated for so long. And finally, one day she brought me over to the litho shop to get paper and introduced me to Bill. And that's when I got my first piece of paper. I think it was in 2010.
Amazing.
I brought my first print there, and it was not bad. Second one, I really didn't like, but my third one was a hit. That's when the co-op decided to put my first ever drawing into an edition, and it's my great grandfather's Lachaulasi Akesuk's carving. I think he kind of inspired me. Like he's been gone since 2000 in October, but when I was trying to think of what to draw, his carvings always came to my mind. So I remembered how his carvings were growing up, so I drew that and brought it down to the co-op, and they liked it. They made it into an edition.
Awesome. So there you are. Great. So can you tell us about art production in Dorset? What are some of the challenges there?
Like it's a bit cramped in there. I really don't have, since I'm a grade 2 teacher right now, I really don't have the time to go to the print shop and go do my work there. So I usually work at home during the evenings, and that's if I'm not too busy with my 2 kids. And so, like, I think they have lack of space. They would need more space, but I'm really comfortable with working at home and doing it on my own time. Mm-hmm.
And that's drawing mostly that you're doing at home, right?
Yes, and coloring. I love coloring. I love mixing colors. I love using bright colors and mixing them and making them look nice. Like even if it's a spider, I can make it look hot, and it's so bright with different colors. And
Absolutely.
So,
and I think that
I love coloring and mixing colors.
I think that if you take a look at the works outside the Drake, that you'll see that she's brought these really vital, incredible colors into drawings of animals, and particularly your drawing of a fly is one of my favorites.
Can I interrupt for just
Please
I
do.
have a comment. I had the good fortune of joining Saimaiyu in Brooklyn when she was part of the Brooklyn Museum project that Dorset Fine Arts organized. And one thing I found, in terms of what a challenge might be, Saimaiyu is one of a younger generation of women who have advanced their education, and like she said, she's a grade 2 school teacher and has a full-time job and family and responsibilities. And one thing that rang out in my mind during this project is it was quite difficult for her to get the time off to go to Brooklyn Museum. And I would have thought, as a principal or an employer of the school, you would encourage your staff to be able to to do that. And I think there, you know, if there is some advocacy or, you know, education that Dorset Fine Arts or any, you could talk to the employers of some of these women who are really, you know, having careers that, you know, afford them the living. They're doing art for, you know, extra income, but certainly for other reasons that are important. So I would like to see support for, and I'm not saying, you know, the co-op needs to stay open or, you know, different things like that. I think it just, if you have your job, you are not penalized for also making art. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. No, that's really important, and thanks. Thank you for that. So, and I understand that you've spent time in the north, and so has Gaëtane, of course. And I was hoping that both of you could talk about that and your experiences in the north.
My experience is very, very recent. I went in November, and Saimaiyu, I never forgot how when you said you saw my winter coat, you asked me if I had bought the coat for the trip, and I said no, I borrowed it. She says, yeah, because that's that's a February coat, but we were in November, so. And but anyways, we took a group of patrons up to Cape Dorset, and a month ago or what, with Nancy coming to meet me at the power plant, I never forgot how impressed you were that we actually pulled it off and brought 9 patrons from the power plant, because the power plant organizes international trips all over the world. And with Jennifer, in thinking of what we could do this year, I thought, you know, it's really interesting. You know, we go to Turkey, we go to Argentina, we go all over the world. But if somebody was to ask me, you know, what is the north of Canada, I wouldn't know because I've never been. So our real intent is always to go and meet artists and do studio visits, and so we went to Cape first to. In order to go to Cape Dorset, you fly into Iqaluit, and then after you go to Cape Dorset. So we were there for about 4 days, and during those 4 days, we managed to meet really a large part of the community and to be at the studios and get a real sense of the condition and the context in which people worked, and to, you know, go visit the mayor while he's wearing his hat as a sculptor, and then the next day to have him at lunch as the mayor of the city of Cape Dorset. And so I think it was really important for me as the director of an institution for us to go there and meet the artists and understand how the works are produced, how they go from a drawing from an artist like Saimaiyu, and then it gets transferred to become a print and carved, and the collaboration of many different people in order to produce the works.
Amazing. Thank you. Nancy, do you want to? How many times have you been to Dorset?
A fair number, over 10. I don't know. I've mostly gone to Cape Dorset. There's many communities that make fantastic work, but I can only really speak to Cape Dorset in any depth. But I went to Cape Dorset when I was researching the Pudugu show, and I've had the fortune to go there every year, so or more. And it's always, I find it very wonderful, and people wonderful. Some people like the north, and
What attracted
I think
you?
It's amazing.
What attracted you to the work in Dorset in particular, as opposed to other communities?
Well, again, I think I speak to coming at it as opposed to coming at it as an, you know, a scholar interested in Inuit art and the history of Inuit art. Of course, that has happened and as a consequence of working in it, but as a curator looking at contemporary art, and, you know, it seems there are artists, particularly performance artists, video, music. You know, there's a lot going on in different communities: animation, video games, photography. I've always liked drawing, and, you know, got looped into Annie's work, and that was where I started and then went backwards in terms of research. And that community I've got relationships with the community, and that seems to be where I kept going back to, so.
Awesome. Saimaiyu, so I have a question for you. So you were invited by the Brooklyn Museum to participate in an Inuit symposium, similar to this one, I suppose. So from an artist perspective, how important was that trip to you?
That trip was so much fun, and I learned so much. And I like with who I am, and being a teacher and being a role model in town, I could tell the younger generation, the high school students, or even the elementary students, like I use this as my teaching sometimes, me going to New York for my art, like for being an artist. And one day I decided I came upon Doug's pictures when we were at the World Trade Center. So I decided to show my students those pictures, and they were like, "Oh, where were you? Where was that?" And I go, "Oh, I was in New York." One of my students right away, first question, "Did you see Home Alone?" And first thing they thought of was Home Alone when I told them I was in New York with my art. And that was so cute. And they were like, "Oh, did you see Home Alone? You were in New York, lost in New York." And I told them that I was an artist and that I'm a teacher, and what I do at home. And the teenagers in town are starting to find out that I'm an artist, and like I want to encourage them to be an artist. I want to encourage them to work and to be an artist. Like, you can't only have one thing going on in your life. You can have many different things and still have fun. And like, even though I have a family, I am so happy I get to do these kind of things because I have big support from my family. But I love using my experience going to MoMA and the World Trade Center and the Brooklyn Museum and having a panel discussion, and to Madison and on Alaska. And when I went to Red Hook, I came across my boyfriend's carving, and that was like so awesome. So I had a great experience, and I use that to encourage the younger students, kids.
That's fantastic. Now, going to the MoMA, what was that like? Was there works by particular artists that were exciting to you?
Yes, we went to the Picasso exhibition. It was awesome. Oh, Picasso, I was so amazed. Like even though I really didn't enjoy art in my course, but Picasso, like, I don't know why I was drawn to his kind of art, and I was interested in it. So I think because that was the first time I was interested in art, I couldn't forget Picasso, and we went to his exhibition, and it was so much fun. It was awesome.
That's fantastic. So Gaëtane and Nancy, I'm curious where you see Inuit art within your institutional practice, and Nancy within the context of being, first a contemporary art curator, and then interested, that transition into Inuit art, and where you see kind of the space between the hybrid.
So I would say that in terms of our institution, the interest is really to show art of our time, and so artists, and to expand this notion of international or global, so not to just show what's being done in the center, and then to be interested in these practices as they're Canadian artists, and not present them within a context of saying, we're just looking at Inuit art practice as a general term, but like being interested in an artist and showing the work as an artist alongside another artist that could come from a completely different background and from a different generation and style of artist. So being able to show the works of an Inuit artist next to the work of an American painter, and so to me that's a real interest, and that it doesn't become a one-off that you do in the context of 2017 because every grant funder wants you to do something that's supposedly Canadian, and then that's the go-to. So I'm not necessarily interested in that sense, but much more into explore the practices of these artists alongside practices of other artists as an expression of the specificity of what they talk about. And I think for me, going to Cape Dorset enabled me to look at their work from a different point of view, because when you go to Cape Dorset and then you look at some of the works by Annie where she says, looking at porn in Cape Dorset, or like the image is there and then you don't forget it, or a drawing of the I'm not saying that you have to go there in order to understand the work, but I would say as a professional in this field, it really made it much more relevant for me to understand the context in which the works were made. And I would hope that as luckily the power plant over the last 30 years has shown some Inuit artists, probably not enough, but at least it's been embedded in the history of the institution. And so how can we pay attention, learn more about it, and then see how we can grow that interest in order to present it, but not just present it in Canada, but circulate it to other parts of the country or the world in the same way we would do for any exhibition that we would produce and promote outside of the gallery.
Amazing. So it sounds like you're creating this contemporary art context that it creates a dialogue across discipline of lots of different contemporary artists and looks at Inuit art on that same platform, which is super exciting. Nancy, how about you take it away?
Well, I'm not employed by a specific institution at the moment, but so I can't speak to an institutional framework. I do work as an independent curator, and I am doing a number of exhibitions for various art galleries that are of Inuit artists. The most exciting one is at the moment for me, is a large exhibition of Annie Pudugu's work that I'm producing for the McMichael Gallery for this year. Yeah, I think it's this year. Maybe it's the beginning of next year. I haven't, but it's very soon. I also, through my work as an independent curator, have also looked at historical or modern Inuit art, and I'm always fascinated, if you can look at it through a new lens or a different lens, or a lens that someone hasn't looked at it before, like having someone like Parr come to the museum and look at the objects and have a perspective from a young emerging artist from that community is very exciting, and certainly hasn't been the practice in museums when you're looking at collections. So there's so much opportunity. I just really hope that these very fragile communities can keep their artists working and healthy and exhibiting and selling, and it's a fragile economy and a fragile system. So the more people know about work and are educated about the North and don't have unrealistic expectations about what they're supposed to see, it's going to benefit everybody. So
Awesome. Saimaiyu, my next question is for you, and I'm curious where where you'd like to, or do you think about where you want to take your work? Like, what projects do you want to work on next? Was there anything about being in New York that made you think about showing your work in different ways?
Right now, I will be currently working on the Magenta Foundation with Marianne and some students in town. We have chosen 23, 15 to 18, grade 9 to grade 12 students. And it's going to be with mixed media, and I'm so excited. And right now, I'm also working on some prints, and I hope they'll be made into, it'll be made into a book, and I'm so excited because it's a different way of showing my work, and also working with the students. And I have an exhibition going on in a couple weeks to Portland, and I'm so excited. And with these programs and projects going on, I know I will gain more knowledge. And with this panel discussion, and I was kind of nervous at first, but I'm not so nervous anymore as I'm going through it.
That's great. Well, we're really excited to have you here as part of this conversation today. And just kind of throwing it back again, I wanted to ask, Gaëtane first about, projects that you have coming up at the power plant, and how, maybe your trip to the Arctic may have influenced projects there.
We right now we're looking at, like, some of our programming is done up until 2019, and so from that trip, it's like thinking of which projects do we already have on the go, like artists that we're looking at or practices that we're looking at, and then how could we choose an artist from from Cape Dorset. It could be a sculptor, it could be somebody who does mostly drawing, and then having a show of that work next to another artist, but something that actually, it doesn't need to be a literal, connection, but that there's some kind of resonance, whether it is painting, drawing, or something else. So that's definitely something we absolutely want to do. And but also my interest is to work with somebody who actually knows this and is a specialist of this, so that we don't just parachute ourselves, kind of going there, going, oh, we'd like to pick this, without understanding, how to present the work, and having a good knowledge of the depth of the work. And also because we're an institution that people look at what we do, we want, if we're going to show the work of a Inuit artist, and that goes for any artist that we show, it has to be the right time, the right context, the right types of work, a publication, circulation of the exhibition. I mean, this is what we do with everyone, and that should be the way we treat every artist that we show. So that's definitely something we definitely want to do.
Awesome. And Nancy, I was hoping you could tell us more about the projects that you have on the horizon, the exhibitions you're working on.
Well, the Anipudugu show, which I will be organizing in collaboration with some artists up in Cape Dorset, and will feature some other artists, and Annie's influence or impact, perhaps, is a better word. Another exciting project that is opening this summer is for the Art Gallery of Hamilton, and they've received a large donation from the Hamilton Health Service, which was formerly Mountain Sanatorium in Hamilton, which housed the TB patients in the 50s and 60s. And as an arts and crafts project, they had many of the Inuit patients that were brought down at that time for recovery and convalescence. Very complicated and complex story, but they were recently given the donation from the hospital, and so we're working on an exhibition of the carvings that were done in the TB wards there. So that's something a little bit different, and along with that presentation, we'll be exhibiting some photography by Barry Pottle, who's the Inuit artist who lives in Ottawa. So that's all very exciting. I'm also working on a large Shuvenai Ashuna exhibition, which will keep you posted on that. And the Canada Art Institute, or Canada Art Institute, publishes online books of living art, or not living artists, Canadian artists, I'm sorry. And I wrote one on Shuvenai Ashuna that has been launched online and is going to be, well, it's online now, so that's out. And another project, I'm speaking at the Esker Foundation, so if any of you are in Calgary, there's a wonderful exhibition. I don't know what the title is. What's it called? Earthlings. And Shuvenai Ashuna is one of the artists in that exhibition, Sherry Boyle, and two artists from Rankin Inlet, but I don't know their names, and you do, I'm sure. What's that? I was lucky to go to the open. Oh, were you there? I hear it's an incredible exhibition, so just FYI, I think it looks beautiful, so lots of things in the fire.